Hello, you're watching and or listening to The Loose Gadgies. This week we are covering Choices and Many Lives, which is about the things that drive your choices, outcomes, whether you accept them, decision processes, that kind of thing. The multiple lives or the many lives within one life. We'd like to cover things like mental age, keystone events, perception of things. So it should be a pretty chunky, meaty episode. Very much unlike the kind of soups that I eat, which is only tomato. So Mark, what's the crack?
The crack is...
There's no minestrone here. None of that.
There's no... No, what would I go for? I'd go ham and pea. Keep it simple, ham and pea. And but yeah, I was away this week. I was in Denmark. Same temperature here. Came back last night, so
good bit of coaching, training, and that over there.
Yeah,
very receptive.
Yeah. Got a young guy that I'm working with, 28, ex-military, good guy. But it was interesting because we were thinking about last week's episode and thinking it was a bit. Maybe it was heavy, and then we thought we'll pick something light this week. And actually, when we've looked at it, we're thinking it's quite heavy as well.
It's chunky. I just felt I was worried in case some bits last week were a little bit flat, or maybe it was too wandery. Wandered a bit much. So this week.
We're doing that bit where we're reflecting on each episode now and just sort of saying, did that work? Did it not work? So, as you say at the end of each episode, Simon, we want the feedback if we can get it.
Yeah, we do.
Just to find out which direction we're going.
Yeah, and I'd love some questions. I'd love someone to throw a curveball. And have you thought about this? Or I am struggling with X. That would be great. Can you imagine that? I'm struggling with the X, Y, and Z. Not sure how to approach this. That'd be awesome.
Well, we keep saying that in the not too distant future, we'll invite somebody on, and it's about that guest, and it's about their bit. So the idea is that when we get to that stage, they are doing most of the talking on the subject that they're passionate about. So.
Yeah, and we were considering somewhere on or after episode 10, and this one's 7 already.
I can't believe that.
I know.
Bizarre.
I've been smashing it out. I've enjoyed it. Which is a good sign. So,
yeah, it's interesting that we do the prep and it comes around quick. We have a quick discussion before this about the format and which we can sort of see that other social media aspects are coming to fruition more than others, which is good. So we're going to try and do a little bit more TikTok, aren't we? And see how we do on that.
Yeah, because we hit the 250 milestone and we're already over 300 now and fast approaching 400 followers on Facebook. And then it's good to see that people are branching out into their preferred platform from there. So they're going off to Apple, they're going off to YouTube's well into, 200 and some odd views, and all the videos on there are getting into double digits. One of them's in triple digits. So it's a little reassuring that what we're doing is providing some interest. What is interesting is which ones are going up quicker than the others, and the kind of subjects that people find the most fascinating, like the one about the fear and the reflecting we did on 22 versus 23. That seems to be escalating. The last one, oddly enough, as worried as we were about sort of how it felt afterwards, that one's starting to rack up some views. Episode 6. So it's interesting to see what people are interested in. It really is.
It is. So we've got a bunch load of subjects there that we're ready to delve into, but we'd love somebody else's.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty to pick from, but I wouldn't mind an interruption if someone's got a thing they're dealing with. Even we don't have to mention any names on out. But
speaking of interruptions, how's Mum?
Oh, I didn't know whether to kick off this from the start, but we've got on TikTok, right? So, and I put that TikTok clip out of my rant about microwaves and my mum saying the reason it didn't work is because I hadn't watched it, right? So I thought, they haven't watched any of it. My dad said, I watched a couple of minutes. So when they came round on Wednesday for a visit, cup of tea, I said, "Yeah, have you seen it?" "No, I haven't seen it." "Well, watch this. You're going to be famous."
Yeah.
She went, "Oh," and she just stood and watched it. She was having a bit of a chuckle to herself. She said, "Well, it's right. Well, it's right, isn't it? It's right. You should have watched it." I said, "Well," so anyway, I was in the hairdressers. I was like, "Oh, where we're going? Well, this is where I get my tangents from, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is where I get my tangents from." So I was in the hairdressers. Yeah, she was talking about her sons. Told us about their names, their ages. Surprised I don't know their shoe size, all of that. And she said, "You know what it is? They're like your brother, like my older brother, Steve. You go around there, all the bloody lights are on. It's like Blackpool bloody illuminations." I thought, I haven't heard that in years. So I was watching WhatsApping that out to Sarah and a couple of others, and they're like, "My mum says that. My mum's," and then they just started rattling off a few things. So all the ones we did in that episode, I sent them out. I said, "What about this?" I said, "My mum used to say that. My mum used to say." So what about? And it was tea time as well. Sugar, shit, and shoelaces. What's for tea? What's for tea? And I was like, "Shit with sugar on top." I was like,
So we're going to continue with the Man Bible format, aren't we, for a bit longer?
We could write a book by the end of this. I'm sure of it. Call it the Geordie Man Bible.
The Geordie Man Bible. I mentioned one because you mentioned it last week on clarts, and my daughter, who's 23, she was like, "What are clarts?" And I was just like smiling.
She needs to spend some more time up here. Eh?
I know.
Pick up.
Yeah. She's too posh in Cheshire.
Posh.
Too posh to push.
So, what I was thinking was we've structured out these bits and pieces. Seems like a nice flow. So I thought I'd kick it off by asking a couple of questions about. I call them primary drivers. You know, the things that might drive the way you choose, not necessarily your decision process and the way that you go, the things that you pull in and all of that, but why you sort of chose what you chose. It'll make sense anyway. So looking back, were your choices about what to avoid or what you didn't want, or were they about where you wanted to go next and what you needed to achieve? So were they about your fears and things to avoid, or about your hopes and where you wanted to be? I guess is the best way to sum that up.
Yeah, that's sort of,
because if you're driving your choices by saying, "I don't want to go there, I don't want to do this, I've got to avoid that," then you're kind of spending your life dodging things rather than aiming at a thing. And it was when I was, you know how I like to research me little me quotes every week, and I just did a bit of reading on that, and one of those popped up with that kind of, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And I thought, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And if you look back, what drove you in the direction that you're in?
Yeah. My sort of perspective on that one is sort of you're right in terms of what we'll come to on the next subject about many lives. It's like it was always for me what's next, and that was driven from a kid who I would perceive as a kid who didn't have many choices in terms of money. So and what I've sort of realised is that it was always what's next. No time to sort of reflect on how it went and how it gone. And now in later life, it's switched to now it's the journey that I enjoy more than the ending in terms of the choices. So I made a choice, but I'm actually going to enjoy the journey. Whereas previously it was, right, I made a choice, I'm going to do that. Oh, I don't like it, right, I'm going to do something else.
Like you did with your man shed. You were like enjoying actually setting this thing up for yourself and going through the process.
And I think you're more like I want to be in terms of you sort of research more than I do, and I've moved into that area of research.
That's fair.
Because you research a lot, don't you, in terms of what you're going to do?
Yeah, I asked myself this question as I was writing it down in my notebook, and I drastically changed right around the time in 2010 when we first started working together. I'd just left a call centre. I'd been there for like 4.5 years. After rebuilding my career, after a bit of a... I went into a call centre because I needed a job. But after 2.5 years out of work with some pretty serious depression. And I was determined, right, I'm going to be a manager in 5 years. And that was the first time that I can remember setting myself that's where I'm going. Because previously, I'd be like, job, 2 years, job, 2 years. I'd just get bored. I want to do something else, move on to something else. But there wasn't like a purpose. It was just, I need to earn money. That was it. My dad had drilled that into us. You leave school, you earn money. That was it. Never been to uni. Wasn't going to get the chance necessarily to go to uni. I might have been a medical doctor otherwise. But that was the first time I remember getting a taste for, do you know what I need? I need a thing. I need to aim at something. And I did it in about 4.5 years. And then I went, right, well, I need another one. I can't just say, that was good. Need another one. And of course, that's stuck since meeting you and seeing how you look at things. Some of the way you do it is kind of rubbed off and stuck with me. So I do research it. So while my idea might come out of thin air, I approach it with reading. I don't do the whole gutsy thing, just go, oh, need this, need that, go, go, go. It's like, right, hold on a minute. It's the best way about this. What am I missing? Can I do it now? Am I good enough to do it now? And I didn't do that at the very start. I wasn't ready for management when I first thought about it. And I've been on a journey since, and by the time I hit it, I was ready. Even though I wanted to do it, 2 years earlier. It was a big admission, but had I not admitted it, I probably wouldn't have achieved it. So that leads me neatly onto going into outcomes and acceptance. So I think this was partly driven by some of the things you said about multiple lives, and that I was thinking about the outcomes and the acceptance of, are you the same person with the changes you've made just stacked on the top, and are you maintaining them, just having to remind yourself of them, which is some of what I do, because that's some things in my head don't stick, and I've got to constantly remind myself to do them, because my brain doesn't always make sense of some of these social constructs and whatnot. So have you accepted your choices, or are you someone new? And have you cemented those changes from the choices you've made, and you automatically operate differently to the way you were before without thinking, like you wouldn't recognise the way you were?
Yeah, the choices I tend to make, I never really think about them afterwards, and that's sort of quite negative in a way, because I think, especially when we work together, I found it very difficult to celebrate success because I was always on to the next choice, the next thing.
Oh, reflection.
So I didn't,
reflection.
reflection.
Work. Yeah.
And of course, reflection that I did do tended to be focused on the negative aspect of the choice that we'd made.
Yeah.
Even though 99% of the decisions that we made on that choice are right, my mind would still focus on the 1% that I could actually have done better. I wouldn't say I dwelled too much on it, but the fact that I would reflect on the negative side rather than enjoying the journey there. I think I've flipped that now, and it's been an evolution.
So when it comes to the process, would you say that, or is it safe to say that you're more of an instinctual operator then, rather than a researcher like me? Is it? And to be fair, I mean, is it better or healthier to have a balance between the two, or does it depend on the choice? Because for me, I can make instinctual decisions where I'm going, that's happening, and then I just go for it. But it seems that it depends on the thing that I'm choosing about, and whether is it an amount of risk involved, or sometimes I just know it, or I feel it. Is that going to be past experience? And so I'm not incapable of making a sudden move. I mean, is there I mean, is there really a big difference between the two, between instinct and gut feeling? Because my old
I
boss used to tell me that when I make these instinctual choices, I called them gut feeling, and he went, "It's not your gut. You're actually underselling what you've just done. You've just used all your experience sort of in one go and went, that needs to happen." It's experience and instinct and experience are in the same ballpark. Gut feeling can be described as, well, I think I'll go do that. To me gut.
yeah,
And he thought I
like
was cheapening the experience if I did
it's
that.
interesting because I thought about this one, and again, for some reason, I ended up focusing on the negative, and it surprises me sometimes. So I sort of thought in my head, if it smells like a turd, it looks like a turd, and feels like a turd, it probably is a turd. You know, when you talk about your gut reaction, and that's where it's like when somebody like, I go to like people who are trying to sell me something, or they come on the phone and they're your friend, and we know they're not your friend, and we know they're after something, and then instantly I'm on my guard, and so in terms of the decision making process, I'm already default no,
But
because you want.
is that more experience than gut though? Because you've been through that before. Because they still managed to dupe some people.
Oh yeah.
So is
You look on,
it an instinct driven by experience, or is it just a
what's,
gut feeling that something's up?
I tell you what, I'm researching at the moment, and this is a good one actually for this example in terms of choices. So I want a caravan. Yeah, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on it, but I've been going that journey for 3 months now, ish, actively looking.
It's been.
Yeah,
It has.
and
I
that's
haven't
not
talked
me.
about this.
That,
No, we spoke
that's
about this last
that's a
year.
you that's a you thing.
It is.
And so
Reading all the reviews. I've got to read all the negative reviews first because the positive ones, obviously doesn't matter in my head. It's like,
But
what's wrong with it?
one of the things that's coming out of the caravan research is that there's lots of scammers out there now. So when a scammer says, right, if you just send me a deposit of 50 quid before you set off on your travels to look at this caravan, red, that
Red
smells like a
flag.
turd to me. It smells like a turd and it feels like a turd, and I'm just not going near it. So anybody that's asking me for something, you're talking about.
Well,
That's
up
now
front.
a level of experience. But
Up
how
front.
the bit I struggle with is that there's people similar age to us that will pay that 50 quid.
Because they
So
think, oh, this must be the way it's done then. You pay your 50
yeah,
quid to secure making
yeah,
assumptions.
and then you look on that profile on Facebook,
Aye.
and you see that they've been on Facebook since 2023, and you're like, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, and
Yeah, what are you even in this country, or
yeah,
are you
yeah, yeah,
do you even
and
own
we
a
know it.
business? Is this your
I,
third limited company?
yeah. So when when you're doing your research on the decision that you're going to make, I tend to put a lot of effort into the surrounding bits and information now, and I'm just not. Previously I would think, all right, you're going to miss the boat, Mark. You're going to miss that one caravan, the one that was meant to be yours, and well, there's thousands of caravans out there. I just take my time. There's no rush, you
So
know.
what you're saying is we've kind of reached an accord where I agree that I've got to spend a little less time humming and hawing, and you've maybe just got to spend a little more time, and you're experimenting with
Yep.
it. So we've reached kind of a happy middle, perhaps. Well,
Yeah,
maybe it's not
because
me. I still do a shed
one
load
of
of
the books
research.
that we both read was called, I think it was called Switch, and it's about how to change when change is difficult. And one of the examples, we've probably covered this before, is two stalls selling jams. Yeah, and one stall is selling jam through only three types of jam, and one is selling a store which's got 50 types of jam on. And the one that sells the most is the one with three, because we enter something called decision paralysis.
Decision paralysis. Yeah,
Yeah, remember that one?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And because we have so many choices and decisions,
You
we
bind out.
actually avoid making the decision. And so we're in a balancing act here, me and you and Simon. We're sort of trying to play the middle of the field, and that's actually where you want to be. But once we've made the decision, we can't beat ourselves up over it. We can't.
That's that is the tricky part. I'm very good at just sort of going, right, now I'm ready, I'll execute it later on.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a feeling of some sort of remorse? I mean, the daft thing is, right, I've done that much research. How can I possibly have any room for any buyer's remorse afterwards? After all of the reading I've done, and I've kind of went, right, that's the one right there. I'm far better at it than I was, especially when I've learned to have that conversation with myself, saying, hold on a minute. You went here, 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 and here, and you read this, this, and this, and you were chuffed to bits when you first walked up and went, bought it. What's changed? Well, now, I suppose I've spent some money, and now I'm starting to think, oh, should I have spent, and should I have, shut up. Like, I'd costed it beforehand, but there's just that doubt of, have I done enough? Did I do enough? Have I done the right kind?
Just on the doubt. So I think one of the things we've been playing around with is how healthy is doubt. And I was sort of in the mindset that if I allow too much doubt into the decision I've made to float in, I will take a step back. Versus if I remain on the positive aspect, I will continue the journey. So I think for me, it has to be very much about, I've made the decision, I'm going to commit to doing something like doing a job, or doing, let's just say, the podcast. We've made a commitment for midterm that let's just say, pick a date, end of this year, we're committed. So I am committed that we will do this until the end of the year, and then we'll review. So if I'm in any doubt, like, okay, we've only got 2 viewers and we've done 7 episodes, I'm likely to take a step back. Previously, I'm likely to sort of said, this isn't working, I'm doing something else. But because we're focusing on the positive aspects, we will continue the journey because we've changed our mindset in the positive.
Yeah, we really enjoy it. So the fact that there's quite a growing following. Anyway, I think we were enjoying it nonetheless, and we chatted every week as it was, and we thought, why not record it? So I guess, I haven't actually second guessed it. I really haven't. But then,
no,
is a checkpoint a healthy thing to say this, and this? Yeah.
Well, that's when you get into sort of choices moving on to goals. So if you've set yourself a goal of, I want 10 million viewers by the end of the year, well, we ain't going to make that. But what is it? A goal is some would say it's an arbitrary thing. What happens if we get to 9,999,000? Do we have to switch off? No.
Exactly, which is why I think so far all we've done is, oh well, next one's 500. Oh well, next one is 1,000. Oh well, next one is this. Oh well, next one. And it's been a bit more sort of exciting to watch rather than being nervous we haven't got there yet. I'm more excited that we've got to where we've got. So I'm trying to focus on that. So which again neatly leads me into the next bit about about personalities, right? And stuff that I've noticed. And I deliberately wrote down this example in my notebook. Was about the typical CEO or red type personalities, right? Which you can imagine as a blue often rubs you up the wrong way, right? If any of them are going to. And we see them as, I suppose, flying by the seat of their pants, or at least that's how it looks, relying totally on instinct and pure conviction in their choice once it's made. I'm doing this, and doubt doesn't, even if doubt came into it, it gets shot in the face, right? It's like, nah, and it might, but we don't know, but that's what it looks like, that they just go, doubt, what? Is that in the dictionary? And they just crack on. So my thought was, let's be fair, especially after getting to know Karsten, I've learned a lot about what I didn't know. And you have things that, well, we never hear about their losses because they don't really outwardly focus on them. We don't think about anything they've missed out on or didn't get along the way. Opportunities that they've sacrificed and accepted that sacrifice, obviously. Or what they don't have, what they didn't get, or what even they've lost or didn't learn along the way, because we seem to assume that when we see how successful they are, oh well, there's either no cost or the cost must be acceptable because look at where they are. I mean, is that not enough? So we assume all the prices that they've paid were worth paying, and no damage worth noting was caused anywhere along the way. And I admit I've been guilty of going, oh well, they seem all right, but well, no, there's no marriage there anymore. He's living on his own. He hasn't got this, he hasn't got that. He barely sees these people. He spends a lot of time, sat in the house. He's doing. If he's not in the house, then he's doing 60 hours, 70 hours, or he's got a 4-hour drive to go off and see his kids here. And you think, well, you don't know all this. And we don't know all the sacrifices that were made to get there. And there are a lot. Especially when you see on the news about these commentators saying, oh, well, there should be more women CEOs. Why aren't there more women CEOs? It's all about equality. I said, well, actually, is it? Is it not just that women aren't daft enough? They know what it takes to compete in that, because it is a world of its own, the CEO world, the way how competitive it is and how the recruitment works isn't the same as it works for anyone else. You're generally headhunted or you have to go through a special type of recruiter.
Yeah.
And the sacrifices you have to make on family and your social network and whatnot is entirely different. It's very cutthroat, so maybe there's an amount of it where women have went, I think the cost is too high.
Well, it's interesting, when you sort of say the cost is too high, because the cost tends to be retrospective. So the sacrifice made, and I'll count myself in this, the sacrifice is something you reflect on. It's too late. Whether your kids have grown up and you've not been around for 10 years, guilty. I was away abroad for 10 years. And unfortunately, you don't realize that until you hit something or something happens. But some of these CEOs, some of these big guys, they just continue until the late 70s, or onwards. And that's their life. They're quite happy. But what I found interesting, I wrote one word here, which was about when you were talking about their conviction. Gamblers, we always hear about the good wins, don't we? But we never hear about the losses. So when and it's a very generalistic term to sort of label CEOs with that sort of thing.
But it is a bit of gambling, isn't it? They're quite willing to gamble on that's going to happen. I'm going to get that job. I'm going to go there, and in fact, I'm going to hit that target.
Yeah,
just like that.
Yeah,
just like that.
And when it doesn't happen, we don't really hear too much. But when there's some maybe there's some self-centered people that when they do have that success, we all know about it, and they're telling us so for days. I know I've known a couple of gamblers in my time, and I only ever heard about the good times, never heard about the bad times, and there must have been bad times. We all have bad times.
Yeah.
So and I think when you talk about the cost of it, what is the cost? And to me, there was only one cost, and that was time. I can't have the time back that I spent doing stuff that might have seemed important to me. When you sort of talk about habits and habit building or belief systems, and you're building, I'm providing for my family, that's why I should work 15 hours a day. Well, no, you're doing it for you, no, for nobody else. So you believe by pushing it off to other people, you believe you're doing it for them, but actually, when you get down to the root of it, you're doing it for yourself.
Well, this is where you chucked in a section on tough decisions.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, because I'm a big believer that life is just a journey of choices, and you often hear, "Oh, I haven't got a choice. I've got to do this." Well, you have got a choice, and it was one of the things we pride ourselves in work, Simon. That people would say, we've done that, we've done this. They're saying we've tried all the choices and they don't work. And I'm the biggest thing I say is, we only have one choice in life that we don't have, and that is death. And even then, some people choose, unfortunately, to make a choice on ending that life. I can't tell you what I think about those individuals because it's quite a deep personal subject, but and you get into funny bits about well You've got to pay taxes. You've got no choice. Well, you don't have to pay taxes. You will
Yeah,
go to jail,
yeah,
but you don't have to
exactly.
pay them.
Do you know? Do you know the example? I was chatting to one of my friends late last night. One of our mutual friends last night, and I was just telling her about how things are going, how the podcast's going, and I just ran a bit by her about, oh look, we're gonna, have you listened to it yet? Oh no, look, send us the link. I've just had this, that, and the other to do. I said, look, tough decisions. What do you think of this? And the example was, so you can even see in those heavy dramas and those really dramatic movies, TV shows, however you want to put it, where there's a moment where a guy is told to shoot the person tied to the chair, right? And he shoots him and he goes, I didn't have a choice. You did. You could have shot yourself.
Yeah.
Or you could have thrown the gun on the floor. So, yeah, but then he would have shot me and then shot him. Yeah, but it wouldn't have been you. So you're saying you didn't have a choice to shoot that person. You did. You chose to live. Because you knew if it was you or him. Or it was you or both of you. And you went, well, there's a chance that I come out on this, and you chose to live. So you can't just say there wasn't a choice. I was only following orders. No, you could choose not to, but you also then have consequences. So what you're saying is you weren't willing to accept the consequence of the other choice. That's what you actually meant. Oh, not that you didn't have one. You always have one. It's just the choice. One is often easier than the other. Right? Mm. So I put that to her, and she was like, oof, it's harsh. And I went, yeah. But I kind of wanted to make my point very directly that even in the most horrific of moments and critical of moments, that a choice still exists there, whether you like that choice or not. You can't just throw it away because it was a hard one, or because, well, I was saving my life. Yeah, but you ended his. Oh, but I had to. You didn't have to.
I heard a story from I think it's Bill Gates, and he's in a restaurant, and there's a nice young lady serving him, and he says, "Oh, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life?" And she says, "Oh, I'm 20." She says, "I needed to work." She says, "I'd been thinking about going back to university, but university takes 5 years, and I'll be 25 by then." And he looks at her and he goes, "You're going to be 25 anyway. It's just what you do in the middle. That is the choice."
Yeah. You're still going to get there, but what are you going to do on the way?
Yeah. So don't look at it. Don't look at it like, oh, I've got no choice. I can't. It's just too late now. You can make any choice you want at 20 right now, and you can influence your life.
I've made that same assessment. I've made that same assessment about finding someone, about finding me the half. Was I don't want to waste a year with the wrong person, only to go, well, I've wasted that year now. So about 3-4 years since I first said that to myself, what am I? Still single. Because I've ended up getting there anyway, right? And I've ended up not having that anyway. So I might as well have taken a chance on some of those. Some of those opportunities, if you like, if you want to describe them that way. And but then it would have been this, and what if it turned out shit? Then I would have had all the hassle and the whole sort of head punching or brain punching and all of that. And that's kind of what I want to avoid, because relationships have just been an absolute pain in the arse, or they've been severely painful for me in the past. I've yet to have had one that's really awesome to look back on.
No. Come on. Right, one of your statements you put before was you want something about balance. Tell me what balance means. It doesn't exist. I love it when you do that with your lips. But remember, we're two heterosexual males here,
I've told you before, you're not on the list. You're a green stroke yellow, so
I know I am.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not saying you're stroke yellows, but
Yeah,
stroke
I,
your
I'll
a green
stroke
slash
anything
your
me
look.
once. Just try it.
I know.
I'm
I
I'm
know.
I'm not looking for balance. I'm looking for excitement. You know.
I guess there's definitely a bit of unresolved pain
Yeah.
there for me. I just don't know what to do with it. I'm not sure if my brain's capable of doing something with it, or whether it's settled me into a rut of some kind. I'll pop out of it at some point, but
Going to the opposite side of your analogy there, right? I'm going to take a life experience. So back in the 1970s, let's take my mother and my father as an example. You would often hear, "I stayed for the sake of the kids." In a relationship, I stayed for the sake of the kids. Wow, you know. So what happened to the kids? Uh, they ended up in a toxic relationship for a
yeah,
while, and that affected them that way. Or you take that split, and the kids actually end up finding their way anyway. So
yeah. Or if you stay together, they end up seeing what they think a relationship should look like, which isn't a great example. They end up in
yeah,
amongst fights. They end up feeling like you resent them because, well, we're only here for you. We've only stayed together for you. And the kids, as much as you think they don't, they will pick up on that. It'll come out in
yeah,
your
yeah.
language one way or another. It always does. It
And
always
and
does. They'll
and
pick
that's
up
the
the
way.
vibes.
So when and it was predominantly mothers in them days. Now it could be fathers as well or whatever. But saying I didn't have a choice and I stayed for the kids, oh wow, well that is a tough decision to
Well,
be comfortable with.
is it? I mean, is it worse? And I've heard this in the last couple of years that having a kid will fix it.
No,
That I
don't,
absolutely
don't
do.
set me off.
So then, what you're doing actually is putting that decision on pause while you're having all these sleepless nights, changing nappies, and at some point it's going to come back around the corner and hit you in the face, and then the kid has
Yeah.
to deal with it. There's not just two of you dealing with it. There's now three of you or four of you dealing with it. So I find that it's irresponsible. If that's what you've done, if you thought having a kid was going to fix your relationship,
So
like
what you're saying is
what have you
you're
done to that child? You're bringing them in. You are deliberately and knowingly bringing them into a situation that it might not. There's always the chance it it might not, but you are risking bringing them into a toxic situation from the very beginning. The
because
very
you
beginning.
singularly and you partnership are
Mm-hmm.
unhappy. So you singularly are unhappy. The partnership is unhappy, and you think the way of resolving it is by bringing another entity into that unhappiness.
That's
And
going to need.
rather than resolving your unhappiness first and then making a decision. So why are we unhappy? Why am I unhappy? Well, because he snores at night. Okay, well, let's do something about that. We have some choices. We could kill him. We could
Stick a sock in his gob. You could
smother him. We've
you,
got
you,
loads of choices.
you could
Yeah,
kick him. I've got restless legs. Got restless
yeah.
legs. You could
Restless
kick him.
legs.
Got restless legs.
We could get separate rooms. Yeah, no problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just meet on a Friday night for 30 seconds, and then
Do you know?
we can decide.
Do you know how I sum some of this stuff up? I would say to people like that you're with somebody else's girlfriend. Because if they're
Ooh,
not meant, if you're not meant for them, you're taking them away from the person they're meant to be with.
yeah,
You're with someone else's girlfriend.
that's
Oh,
quite. That's
that's
quite.
the best I've ever
Innit?
phrased that.
That's
The
that's
best I've
really
ever
good,
phrased
that.
that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. That if you're with the wrong person, then someone else is missing out, and someone else that you should be with is either alone or with the wrong person. If you believe in,
Somebody out
the
there.
way that
There's plenty
plenty
more
more
fish
fish
in
in
the
the
sea.
sea. I hate that. Do you know how many times my mum has said that? Plenty more fish in the sea, and I have to grit my teeth. I'm like,
Back to Mum's Bible.
I'd rather you'd said out. I'd rather you'd
Yeah.
said out and just said,
Yeah. Some of them are sharks, and some of them are octopuses, and so,
Oh, do you know that little? Have you seen that slimy white sort of ugly fish with a sad face?
enough about me.
I can't remember what that it's called now. Oh, it's. I think that sort of stuff. It's poignant because it's true. That sort of stuff hits because you're like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
I'm,
it does. And we
we're
don't.
making each other unhappy by trying to make this work when actually there's someone out there that would take us exactly as we are. There's 8 billion people
Yeah.
on the planet, right? So
Oh, there's got to be somebody out there. There's got to be a nice fish,
a nice fish, like a pipe,
like a piece of cod,
piece of cod.
nice battered piece of cod with some chips and vinegar.
Bit of
Speaking of
lemon.
my mental age,
Yeah. This is something, right? Whatever I've worked, or I've kind of met someone new, we've got onto, I don't know, these sorts of daft subjects in the break room or what have you. I've always asked this question because I'm convinced this isn't just a theory. I'm convinced it's true. Right? So, does your brain offer you two answers when someone asks your age, or do you have to think twice? Like I find that I do. I have to go and then I've got to. I mean, there's days I've had to work it out, right? And because a number pops up in my head, 28, just like that, off the cuff. That number comes quicker than the actual number. So I then started thinking, well, did you? Because I was asking a follow up. Did your brain stop aging before your body? I mean, was there like a key moment where your brain went, right? Yeah, I'm me. I'm me now. This is it. This is right. I'm about the right level. This is where I want to stop. So are you? And this is probably the wrong word. I would have said, are you stuck at that point? But are you fixed? Is that your fixed point in time? Or was it, and I think it was for me, a bunch of stuff happened around that time in my life, a bunch of realizations that kind of, I took some sort of leap from where I was to where I was going, and I don't think I'd necessarily, there'd be bits of me I recognise and bits of me I would get on with from my early 20s. But the way that I deal with a thing and the things that I know about dealing with things fundamentally seem to change then. I also found humour as a tool and how it helped me compartmentalise things, deal with things, and integrate with people, which is something I struggled with. Still do to some degree. All of my life up to that point. And I found humour. If I can make people laugh, or make people laugh at some of the weird stuff that I do and just laugh it off and say, look, it's fine to laugh at some of the random stuff that just falls out of my mouth before I realise what I'm going to say. I've said it, sometimes. And I learned to sort of laugh it off. So I'm convinced that I'm 28. It's something my brain just knows. So I've asked that question. Everyone I've asked, bar one or two who looked at me like I was daft, had an answer. And some of them hadn't even thought about it up until that point. And you could see the look on their face when they went, "Yeah, I'm 33." Aye. I was like,
here's a funny one for you. So the old man, he's 75 now, and for let's say for the last 20 years, he's always said he's 10 years younger than because he's let's be honest. I know the old man probably won't listen to this, but the old man at 75 still tries to be a bit of a player, and so he for the last 20 years he's always said he's 10 years younger. Now it's sort of starting to catch up with him when he went out with his son, i.e. me, and he went out with his grandson, and when we would meet the girls, they would be like, "Eh, the maths doesn't work out." So he's always lied about his age, always, and so he's still. I mean, he's 75 now, but when he goes out, he's sort of 60-ish when he tells the how shall I was going to say young ladies, but that's the wrong phrase. But yeah, I thought about this when you said it, and I'm 55 but feel 25, but I'm now I've thought about it quite deeply, and I thought, well, I should be 55 and proud of it because I'm only going to be 55 once.
Oh, it's not an avoidance of me physical age. It's just that I don't act my age. I look at things in a more, well, let's be honest. That can be a bit childish at times. Not immature, because there is a difference between immature and childish. I can be childish, and I enjoy that. So I don't want to change it. I'm happy for my brain to exist in a younger state. I'm well aware that I'm not.
Yeah.
And, as much as I'm not that fond of the number, and I'm not that fond of saying the number either, but I don't think there's anything wrong with me thinking that, I'm quite happy to exist in my late 20s and see the world with those sorts of, with the same amount of wonder I had back then and curiosity. I don't want to lose that.
You talked about progression versus being stuck, and I had what I would call a difficult work experience in my 20s. I was working for a very large blue chip company, which has two letters and an "and" in the middle, and yeah, and I really wanted Chaz and Dave, Chaz and Dave, yeah. What was it?
Sandwiches.
Can you remember C&A? And why did we buy our underpants from C&A? Just so we knew which the right way around they were.
I've never heard it put like that.
It wasn't that company I worked for, by the way. So just forget my little faux pas of comedy there. But yeah, it was so you knew which one was the front and which one was the back. But I wanted to be a leader with this company, and basically they told me, because I didn't have a PhD. We're going to come back to this all the time. I didn't have a PhD.
Is that why Oz? Is that where you? Right. So that was actually seated in something. On our last
seated in
something. It's because we don't have a PhD.
Yeah, so I realised at that point I was stuck, and that they weren't going to let me take that leadership leap. So I made the decision to leave, and that sort of
relieved, if you remember. I did the same in Germany.
It sort of released me, because what that company were basically saying is like, you will never be intelligent enough to take leadership.
Oof, that's not what it's about, is it?
No, 100%.
Wow, which shows the kind of leadership that was there, if that's what they thought, that actually you need it on paper to have it in practice.
There was one guy there who ended up working for 10 years after that, and he basically told me, he said, you don't fit their mould, Mark. And he was honest enough to say that, you don't fit their mould. And I was like, oh, crumbs. To be fair, at the time I was wearing a big loopy earring, which didn't fit with the the "and."
It's funny, I had a similar experience.
Yeah.
Applying for another a family-run company that now occupies the Dillon's Bookshop building.
Uh-huh.
The one that has the window at Christmas.
Oh yeah.
The one I'm on about.
If you're dyslexic, you can't see it properly.
Aye. How'd you spell that?
Yeah.
Let's call it Jeff.
You called me a wick. That's not very nice.
Let's call it Jeff's.
Yeah, Jeff's.
Jeff's. So, Jeff Wicks.
Jeff Wicks. Yeah.
I went for an interview there. And I was pretty confident. Maybe he's a little bit too confident, a little bit cocky in the interview. Because I was just rattling off the questions. I thought I was striking up a bit of a rapport, and they love to get you back for millions of interviews. And of course, Beryl was there. He's sitting in the interview with the manager from HR with our questions and our hairdo. Well, I mean, there's this big curly thing. I mean, she wouldn't have looked out of place with the blue rinse, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So she was probably off down the bingo, but she had this importance about her, in her posture and the look in her face and her tone, and wasn't that keen on wandering off onto a bit of chat, as you do to try and build up a bit of rapport with the person you're in and seeing if you're going to get on, as we've spoken about, best fit, right? Trying to see, does he fit me? Is my humour going to roll here, or am I going to be a bit out of place, or what? And I got basically, I didn't get the job, and I got used to grilling for feedback. Like, it's valuable. I want to know what wasn't there. Was it me? Was it something I missed? And as you know, in the past, answering questions involved too many tangents, right? Which I'm far better at than I was. And so I grilled the recruiter and said, "Look, what was really the crack?" He said, "Well, I've been having this bother with a few. I think it's just about the fit. It's a family company, and so it turns out someone who was my boss, my last permanent job, she went, and they had her in for 4 interviews, right? So there was the one with Beryl and the manager, then the next manager, and then of course the family owners wanted to meet you as well because she was taking like a head of position.
Yeah.
So went all the way to the top, and of course, it being a family company, they were like, "Well, look, we want to make sure you're going to fit into the family and this and that." And she didn't quite get sort of what that meant at the time. And then when they strung her along for ages, and all these interviews and trying to get feedback, and she ended up actually meeting, was it 2 of the brothers? And in the end, she didn't get it. And so they've put me through hours and hours of interviews only to say, "We don't think you're a good fit." So they gave her the same feedback that I got. We don't think you're a good fit. But it was the way the way they phrased it, and it was the way the recruiter said to me that, "Look, they're a bit picky," and I can see now why in some respects, but it still felt that was a lot.
I just think that's a cop-out phrase. Specifically, how am I not a good fit?
But that's all I got.
I want the specifics. Yes, I don't fit everybody because I don't know what fit means.
Like for them, I didn't.
But it doesn't mean anything.
Was it just a bad interview, and I came across the wrong way, or?
Well, of course, we all know that in terms of feedback, especially with recruiters, they're protecting us as well. They think we're going to die.
Yeah, there was a bit of that. I guess
Yeah.
I was trying to be a little bit pushy with it, and that's eventually what I got was, look, they just don't think you're a good fit for the business or for them. And he sort of intimated that, look, there's a crowd there, and you have to fit that crowd, and you don't. So, but that I didn't know what that meant. Is it the way I am? Was it me humour? Was it me this? Was it me that? And I went, well, then maybe I'm just better off out then. Better off.
Yeah.
So moving on, and I've moved on. I've done better things since, to be fair. So, as part of this multiple lives, leading on from sort of having this mental age, when I was thinking, well, was there a key moment there? I thought, well, actually, because it was you that put this idea in my head about this multiple lives, and thinking about the multiple lives piece, and then having this key moment from mental age, I thought, well, hold on a minute, is there more than one? Like, can you separate out separate phases in your life, big decisions or sweeping changes or some key emotional thing that went on, and could you consider any of these phases to be actually an entirely new version of yourself, like a new life in essence? And for example, like, do you act any differently, or are you a completely different person? And I was trying to find a good sort of analogy for this. So I imagined, how would the conversation go if you could either go back or pick up the phone to yourself 5 years ago, then 10 years ago, then 15 years ago, and so on? Like, how would the younger you react to who you are now, and how would you judge or react the younger you? Like, how would that conversation go? I thought, is that the best way to kind of trigger the thought? And I was like, yeah, can you imagine? Can I imagine going back to sort of teenage me on me YTS scheme? I hadn't learned half of the habits, social norms, social practices, ways of being around. There was tons of that stuff I hadn't learned, let alone knowledge about life in general and experiences I've had since then, and just having, like, understanding how ambitious I am and what that constant drive there was always in me to do something else. I've got a hold of it now, but I didn't even know what it was then. Humour. I loved humour back then, but I didn't have the grasp of it that I have now and how important it is to me. I didn't recognise that then. So I just think it would be... I'm convinced I'd be speaking to someone that isn't me. Like, that isn't who I am now. I'd be radically different. Enough to say, to fit with what you were saying about having these multiple lives, that, yeah, it's a different... I'm enough of a different person to just not relate to that person back then in many ways. And I could consider it sort of a new me at the very least.
Yeah, I would sort of. It's a tough one because in reality, I say we have one life. It's just phases of life. But I would sort of separate mine into multiple lives, and I even give them a name. And in formative years, up to sort of 15, where you're doing that growth, and then after that, I probably would describe it as my difficult period is the want phase. I want those things because I couldn't have them in my informative years, and it was just about possessions.
So it made you thirst for those things, that when
Yeah,
you realised that you could now go out and get them, you
yeah.
were sort of backfilling those experiences that you thought you didn't have. Did you feel like you were owed them in some way?
Oh
Or is
yeah,
it
big
that you just
smile.
wanted to have them?
I felt I was owed them. I was envious of people who who did have them and I didn't have them. So like, my wife laughs at me now, but I went through this really tough phase of buying too many pairs of trainers because I couldn't afford them when I was a kid. So I got a shitload of trainers, and and she still laughs at me now. But it was there was my want phase. Then I call it the next phase realization. I'm starting to realize that I'm a bit scarred here, and I need to start thinking about why am I scarred. Then I call it the discovery phase. So the discovery phase is right. Let's work backwards through the track and do a bit of education and sort of find out why you're not broken, but you're slightly uh, messed up. I'm a bit
Nah.
careful with my language there.
So
It's like,
to take hold of the thing permanently, you have to understand first what it is.
yeah, you used the analogy of going back and having a conversation with yourself. Well, I've done that multiple times, and I still do it now. And I talk to that young guy, and and what it's ended up as me being in what I would call my peace phase. I'm in my peace phase, and I put in brackets with that sort of. We're never really truly at peace.
No, no, no. Well, no, because you still need to have a drive of some kind, don't you? You still need to feel always just a little bit unsettled, otherwise
Yeah,
you stagnate. So
yeah.
I tell you what my. It's going to sound. It's probably going to sound really pathetic compared to yours, but there was two want phases for me, and I mean, there's been a bunch of other stuff as well, like you, with stuff I
Yeah.
couldn't have, but there's two always seem to jump out. One was when they were still there. That is, I took a shed load of pound coins down to the seafront and went on all the machines I wanted to go on because I knew I could afford it, right? Because I had a job, and I just went down there and got loads of change. Like, went up with notes to the counter and got some change. I mean, you imagine, I felt like I was filling in a gap because I used to go down there with my mate all the time, play on Outrun. You know, the one that had the move. You know, it could move a bit left and right when you were banking on the curves. And
Yeah.
I mastered one of the tracks and all that. So I went down there and I went, I've got. Look at these pound coins. I'm gonna have a day, an absolute day down here now. And I did. And the other one for Christmas, one year, I asked my mum for a sticker album, right? Star Wars, and a full box of stickers. A full box. And I could just sit there and open as many as I like. Get all the foilies. All the shinies. The shinies and the foilies. Turns out, actually, there's a whole adult community of sticker swappers online. There's a forum for it. People who still collect the Panini albums for for the Euros or the World Cup.
Yeah.
I know this because Sarah's husband do it, and she has to keep telling him you can't. You're just going to waste it. You're going to buy that box. They're expensive. You can blow 60 quid on a box of stickers and an album. It's daft. They're not like 10 pence a packet anymore. So those are my two fillers. Well, the ones that always jump to my mind. I'm a proper gadget freak. I love me gadgets. Not as much as my older brother does mine, but I love me gadgets. Now it's
what is
pens.
that? What is that? You watch
Doctor
Who, don't you?
Nah.
No, all right. What's that thing? What's that thing that Doctor Who does every now and then, where he changes?
Oh, he regenerates.
That's it.
He dies and regenerates into a different.
That's
person.
probably a nice analogy for this. Is that
Yeah. Still has some of the memories of the past, but is essentially a new person.
Yeah, and we'll not talk about the fact that he's moved into his transgender phase, but never mind.
Yeah, Doctor Woke.
Doctor Who? There was loads of jokes when I was a kid about knock knock.
Who's there?
Doctor
Who?
Hey! Oh, that was quite. It was quite deep and meaningful again, isn't it? We'll have to put in a few more jokes in the next one.
Dr. Wee's keys are these?
Wee's keys are these keys.
Yeah, obviously we don't live that far south. We're not on the south side of the town. No. You should see how many followers I've got in America. There's loads.
Yeah.
There's loads, yeah. We're trending all over the shop. All over the shop.
Good. All over.
So,
next week.
Be interested to know how the Geordie accent's doing over there. Although I will say this before we crack on for next week, is I'm surprised when I watch, because I watch a lot of American shows, how often I see a bottle of dog in the background, bottle of brown ale in the background of a shot, or in a pub or a bar or something. I'm like, they know what that is, so they don't just know stuff from the UK, but specifically from Newcastle.
And they sell a draft, which is like could almost be called a sin.
I was going to say, how can you call it a bottle of dog? And what they might not know is why it's called a bottle of dog.
Well, go on, you'll have to fill in here for the viewers.
It's when the husband wanted to leave the house, for reasons. To stop being nagged, or to just have a sneaky drink. You would say he was going to walk the dog.
Yeah.
And he'd be off to the pub with the dog, wouldn't he?
And he'd come back 3 days later.
So it's called a bottle of dog. 3 days later. Right. Well, I wasn't going out, and now I'm out.
Out. No, that was just out, not out. Yeah.
Not out, yeah. Yeah, because he wasn't in his slippers, was he?
So we're saving surprises. We're saving surprises for next week again, aren't we? What we'll do is we'll find out where we are on Monday or Tuesday, and then we're sort of ready to create.
Yeah, I know we've got some ideas. Like, we'd planned to cover some pension stuff this week, and sort of the back end of. Well, no, it was more about trying to raise awareness of that stuff. I hate that phrase. Raising awareness. I've caught myself out saying that and shining a light. I hate it. Anyway, we wanted to kind of point it out, because some of our audience, when I've had a look at the demographics, are 25 plus, right? Mostly 25 right the way through. And I know I didn't think much about that stuff back then. So I think at the point of what we're trying to do is to say, look, have you thought about this? And do you even know what it means? And what it means when you don't have it? Because my situation's not great in pension-wise. Anyway, what I was going to say was, look, 10 minutes mix-up.
Yeah.
My mum took one out of my bag. So here, I got you this from because she does the tea hut.
The tuck shop.
At Whitley Bay FC. So she does the tea hut down there, makes the soups and that. And she puts these up. She went, oh, yeah, I got you one of these. I was like, I don't know why, but I'm always like, canny chuffed when, ooh, mix-ups, what's in it? I had to give her the white chocolate, like. I had a little white, you know the buttons with the little hundreds and thousands on the bottom?
Nice.
Them. I'm just not a white chocolate fan, it's too sweet. So did you want that? She nearly took my hand off. The chicken nearly took my hand off. That's another thing my mum says. Ooh, I took his hand off. Oh, and last one.
Go on then.
It's to die for.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, Mum, can you stop? Can you stop saying that? Well, it was lovely. So why don't you say that? Oh, because it was to die for. No. Stop it. You're starting to sound like you're on one of them shows. Well's my mum's answer to absolutely everything. Well, stops every conversation. So, I guess, we'll keep it a surprise, and then we can work through what we're going to work through, and we'll catch you all. Hey, have we stayed on time? Awesome. Right.
What is it?
It's 107. Not
Come
bad,
on.
that. It's
You're
not
getting
bad,
there.
that. It's not
You're
bad.
getting there.
I went on a bit of a rant at the 1 hour mark, didn't I? Right. So we'll catch you next week. Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.